So when did the interesting stuff start to happen?
Well, it was interesting. The interesting thing was that CBC were sort of, they had their guys who did, quote, serious music and whatnot. And I remember Lauren Tulk was still doing Massey Hall at those days. And I wanted to get into that. But separate from that, I was already experimenting, with Salvation Army stuff. I'd got my own recorder and I was recording the band. And
what kind of recorders were there at that time?
Wollensack was a big name, but then there was also what was the name of it now? Roberts tape machines were big in those days. And I had a couple of Roberts. And I had a Denon at one point. It was really quite nice.
I remember that name. What, Ampex, was it?
Ampex was just starting to come up, but in the pro market.
Oh, yes.
They never really had. They did have one for a while in the sort of consumer market, but I remember the first time I got my hands on an Ampex tape machine. It was the old 600 series with the 7-inch reels, and that was incredible.
I mentioned that name because that's the equipment we used in the private radio station where I cut my broadcasting teeth in southern Manitoba. Yeah.
Well, actually, when I came to radio and started in the recording room, they had the original Ampex tape machines down there. And they were roughly the size of a clothes washer. They're huge things with the reels on the top. Yeah. And massive things. And they were like the very first production models of Ampex. And
I interrupted you, though. You were saying that Tulk was involved, Lauren Tulk was involved with doing Massey Hall things, and you would have liked to do that?
So I was doing more and more advanced stuff on my own for the Salvation Army. And it became interesting because CBC were basically saying he's not ready yet. But I was doing these recordings for different bands, and we had big concerts at Massey Hall with 500 voice choir and the staff band all recorded. And then I was taking copies into Max Ferguson. Max Ferguson was playing these every other morning. He was, touting it up. Oh yeah, live from Massey Hall. Our own Ed Marshall recorded this sort of thing. And it got a little bit embarrassing in the office, I think, at the time. Anyway, there was one point in time where Lauren had finished at Massey Hall and James Reed was doing Massey Hall. And he wasn't really, it wasn't really a big production, and they were going in when using one single mic and whatnot, and this sort of thing. Anyway, James got tired of this. He didn't want to do it anymore. So he went to the office and said that, this was during the summer, I think, that he didn't want to do it anymore. And he came and told me, he says, get down to the office right now because there's a hole and they're looking somehow to fill it. So I went down and talked to Pat Marshall. I think at the time she was there. I said, I'll do it, So she's happy. She wasn't in management, so she didn't know. There was an empty hole and there was a name that she could put in it. So James came along with me the first couple of weeks at Massey Hall and sort of showed me the ropes, and we started getting going. Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
and that was 68 or 68, did you say?
68 I started radio. So this probably would have been around 1970, I think. I started with where I made my breakthrough.
Right. And then over the years, what programs were you most closely associated with? Or didn't it work that way?
Yes and no. I didn't. I mean, the main thing was Symphony Hall.
Right.
Of course, remember James Kent was the producer.
Right.
And James and I sort of hit it off. And so he got me, so we would record the symphony sort of like on a Tuesday and Wednesday. And then on Friday, we would package it for broadcast. And in those days, with all the different time zones, we ran like five copies of tapes that got shipped across the country after that. And that's back in the days when Don McGill was the host, you know. And so I started doing, and in those days, you know, we were recording about 20 concerts a year with the symphony. So that would be like 20 weeks.
Now, would these be live performance recordings, or were these studio recordings?
No, they were live. They were actual concert broadcasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do like a Tuesday morning, we go in, set up, we do the rehearsal, and then the Tuesday night concert and the Wednesday night concert. And then it shifted later on to Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then the Friday was the packaging day.
But interesting that there'd be actual symphony concerts in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
You know, which never happens now.
Yeah. No, it was, and it was, I mean, well attended.